What's happening, everybody? This is Jon Denton. Welcome to my review of Rise and Shine from Super Awesome Hyperdimensional Mega Team on PC. If you like the idea of a channel that seeks out cool and interesting games to discuss, then please do think about hitting that subscribe button. Okay, on with the review. So in Rise and Shine, you play as a little boy called Rise, who looks a little bit like Kenny from South Park. And he is basically tasked with saving the world known as Game Earth, or as it's spelt here, Game Earth, which is basically a world full of video game references, quite on the nose video game references, but they're quite funny. You'll see Mario, Zelda, a lot of NES stuff, a lot of retro stuff. None of it is hugely sophisticated, but I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't all pretty amusing. Super early on in the story, the world's being attacked by space grunts, which basically look like Marcus Phoenix from Gears of War, and you quickly find a gun, Shine, hence the game's slightly strange name. Shine is a gun that is extremely powerful and allows you to respawn in the game's fiction. So, okay, it looks like any other ordinary retro 2D shooter, right? Albeit with very nice art, as you can see here. It's a beautiful looking game, really special looking game, in fact. But what's crucial to know about Rise and Shine is it really doesn't play like anything else. If you're thinking it's going to play like a Contra or, you know, the more modern twin stick shooters, it actually doesn't. Rise and Shine is a really unusual game because when you shoot, you're almost standing still. You have to hold the left trigger to pull out your gun, and then you can use the right stick to aim and right trigger to fire. So at its fundamental level, you can move, but you're almost sort of held in place when you're raising the equivalent of your iron sights, and that changes the way this type of game plays immensely. So what it actually is every single screen, and these are side-scrolling levels, but basically you move from one screen or challenge to another, and they're all like a dynamic puzzle to solve. Some of them just require shooting, dashing, being quick, being good with your accuracy. Some are more puzzle-based, like taking out this enemy first because they're more dangerous, and then you start to pick up abilities. The most crucial and sort of central one being that you can shoot guided bullets, which on certain parts of the levels move through these bubbles. If you've ever played like Angry Birds Space, it's actually reasonably similar to how that works. You can shoot a bullet and guide it using the stick through these bubbles, these gravitational bubbles. It basically turns the game into like a 2D bullet hell shoot 'em up in some sort of way, because you're guiding, almost like Geometry Wars, you're guiding this little bullet through enemy bullets and through little gaps, and every time that's used it's a new puzzle to solve, and then you're on to something else. I must say that Rise and Shine, it doesn't play like normal games, and it really isn't paced like normal games. You look at a game like this and you feel like, I've seen this before, I've played this a million times before, but there's no 30 seconds of fun loop here. It's not that type of game. It isn't paced like that. You're on to something else. There's always a new idea. The way the levels are paced, you'll be in one area for a little bit and then quickly move somewhere else and it'll be completely different. And it's just a constant barrage of ideas and extreme challenges of skill. And then it's done. I mean, technically, you could probably get through the game in about 3 or 4 hours. So it is a short game in terms of content, but I did spend at least as long on the final level as I did on the rest of the game combined. And the final level is basically an end boss and a battle before that. They are extremely difficult. This whole game is a beast, and it will push you to your limits. And during its toughest moments, I did actually long for a few little changes in how the game controls, I must say. Overall, you do eventually figure out what the developers are trying to get you to do, and there's a satisfaction in doing that. But having played even a game like Bleed, which is a really cool 2D indie shoot 'em up, which you might not have heard of, but has tremendous like time slowing down abilities and really clever dodges. If you've ever played that or any other sort of fast-paced 2D shooter, it did make me long for a few iframes on Rise's dodge, or maybe a mid-air dash, or a little bit more intricacy and accuracy on how you aim. But ultimately, I think the game is still designed extremely well. Rise and Shine plays brilliantly within its own limits. So even though you may be crying out for something else or a little bit more power in how you can control, ultimately the game doesn't let itself down by not having those things, if that makes sense. It knows the limits of how you can control and it plays within that. But on the 50th, maybe 60th time that I tried to beat the final boss, that's not something that I was really consoling myself with. Anyway, I do have my concerns that this game might be lost. It's an Xbox exclusive on console and obviously available on Steam as well. And it's retailing for $11.99 on Xbox, and I assume the same on Steam, which I think is the right sort of price for it. Again, I don't like to talk about price often in reviews because that's all relative, but at the same time, in terms of the content, it feels like when a game's launching for this price, this feels almost like an IPO. This is what we value our game at. So I think that's a fair price. A beautiful, truly beautiful game, amazing artwork, really nice production design, and just a constant sense of making you feel clever and pushing you to your limits. Like I said, it doesn't play like other games like this, and I do have my concerns with Microsoft not pushing it at all. Adult Swim doing their best work and getting out there as much as possible, but I don't want this game to get lost in the mix. I think people enjoy this style, like to be pushed, and like games that are driven by mechanical ideas and not just gameplay loops over and over again, will really get something out of Rise and Shine. So if you do fall into those categories, and I assume a lot of people who watch this channel, because they know I fall into that category, will be the same. So definitely do think about checking it out. I'm going to give the game an 8 out of 10. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It did drive me crazy, but overall I was extremely impressed, and when I went back to the beginning of the game to do a little bit of capture, I remembered how good most of the bulk of the game was. But like I said, the final boss did make me want to pull out my own eyeballs, but at the same time it was satisfying to beat it. So like a fun, very well produced game. You can see where they've cut corners in cutscenes, even though the artwork is beautiful, stuff like that. I have no problem with that. This is an indie game made by 4 people. The credits are incredibly short, but it seems like super awesome, hyper dimensional mega team, which is not easy to say. It does seem like it's just 4 core people, so really impressive in that respect. And overall, I do think Rise and Shine will find an audience if that audience knows it exists. So definitely do think about checking it out. 8 out of 10 from me. Okay, thank you very much for watching this review of Rise and Shine. Like I said, if you like the idea of a channel that seeks out cool and interesting games to discuss, then please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I've been Jon Denton, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace!